So today I'm going to talk a little bit about it's stuff that I've learned from this workshop called Living Deeply with a Sacred Text. And last year or maybe it was 2 years ago, our theme was like beloved and lover. And so I'm going to just like share some of the takeaways from that. And mainly the idea here is to become embodied. So the physical, like, there's a subtle and a dense, like the physical body is the nefesh, and then the ruach is the breath, like the subtle body, right? And then the spirit dwells in it. So they form with the spirit in it. The spirit we would say here is neshama. So experiencing, even though spirit can also mean ruach, but in this case, spirit here means neshama, the soul. So experiencing God in day-to-day life, this is a way to connect with your lover, your the same way in a relationship, right? So a romantic relationship. So first of all, there's a halo of life, many trees touching the edges. I feel like we could see the way that nature connects to each other. They have no shame about wanting to touch each other, and they form together, they make space for each other. This massive spider web of like fearless, intricate art, and that's how we see in the spiders. And then a soft, slow morning, nowhere that we have to go is like this. It's like life breathing slowly. Nothing I have to do, nowhere I have to go. Oh, do I miss that sometimes? Sturdiness of the trees and leaning against them. Letting things go or pooping, right? This may not be ways that everybody can connect with love and love, becoming embodied, but these are ways that I do. Femininity, receiving as a vessel, holding space for even pain. Holding space, right? Taking up less space, I don't need as much. Letting go of entitlement, right, is a way to make space for everything. And elevating music, I become vibration. Being abandoned brings me into never abandoning myself. Having external rejection, it brings me into self-love. This is the way to get out of the satellite and become, like, to free ourselves from disembodiment. I remember my friend I was dating, this is a couple years ago now, I remember, he had a daughter who, while everyone was around, and I used to meditate with him. I felt like it was mutual awakening. We were arriving together into our embodied spirit, and as feminine and masculine. And I remember one time we were sitting around and his daughter was saying, "Nobody loves me." And I remember telling her, "I relate to you. I used to also feel like that sometimes and still do." And then we start to realize there's ways of like God talking back to us, and it was through me to her because she was listening to me. And another time I saw her, we made a TikTok, but you know what? That was my first TikTok, like 2 years later with her. So it's really about like God talking to us in the ways we know and the ways we don't know, and it's right here. It's not somewhere else. Sometimes we could just open our eyes. We don't have to be in the frantic search of looking for something, like looking for someone to care. Is what I'm saying is if it's right here already, right? It's not anywhere else, then the wise child can delight with fresh eyes. We could open our eyes, we could see in a new way. Our action, our wisdom that's already here, it's not like we lost it. We didn't lose it, it's still here. It's a wisdom body maybe, but it's like we also get to have these fresh eyes from the child perspective. So it's right there in front of my eyes, means I don't have to work so hard. I'm seeing with fresh eyes. It's hiding in plain sight. It's there's a rhythm and flow. This too shall pass. So we keep looking. Right? We're learning how to not run away. That's the presence of a great mother. This is like, maybe I didn't necessarily always feel I had it, but maybe I did. But I'm being held and sitting in the lap of. That's this idea of the great mother. I'm being held and sitting in the lap of. Like I could relax and just be free. And my true feelings are welcomed and appreciated. I could cry on her shoulder. I could wipe my nose on her sweater, right? Tears are this life. I speak about tears because tears are the life force river. It's held inside. It gets stuck. When we let the tears flow, we can also, like I said, the inner child is crying, right? It knows. So it's like the actual, like when we were children or we can see children, new stuff flows. They get over it, right? When the heart doesn't have to be overstuffed or holding in. And we learn how to stop judging our experience then. The narrative goes away. We're hearing God talk to us, right? Tell us exactly what we need to hear. And the narrative crowds out the beloved story, like the purity already. I'm already loved, I'm already beloved. So it crowds it out, the experience. When I say like, oh, this is what happened last week, even just that simple thing starts to ruin it. Versus the child doesn't have to keep track of everything. Am I being loved right now? Or a pet, right? And the secret to receiving blessing from being invited, because all these people want to learn how to have social skills, or including me, but like in a different way, each of us. And I'm speaking right here from like a different angle. But a lot of us, we maybe have wanted to be liked, be approved of. We want social skills so we could like manipulate people. But there's actually something called invited. And that's being invited into a miracle of life happening right now. It's like when a child comes over and with a twinkle in their eye and says, come, I want to show you something. And it's amazing. It's like a stripe of light in the sky and nobody knows where it's coming from. It's just random. And isn't that worth making time for? So slowing down, what's happening here? Stopping, introducing myself to the beloved, recognizing the beloved, like, wow, this is Mother Nature, right? The presence of a great mother. She's so miraculous, but she still loves me. And Hineni, here I am, I'm ready. I'm ready to see now with fresh eyes. I'm ready to let go of what I thought was working. I'm ready to let go of the stress, right? The only reason you would say no to the child is because you're so busy with the agenda. And so the light comes is a dawn. There's a beginning, right? Then there's full glory. Then there's twilight, which is ending and making space. And it takes... Pluto's associated with this creation destruction energy, like, but Pluto takes like over 200, I think it's 260 something years, I believe, or 248 years, I don't remember the exact numbers, something like that. Over 240 years, I believe, to circle the sun. So there's 12 months in our year. You would have to divide that into like sections, into as many sections, 12 sections, so that each of the horoscope sections could get us apart, and you would see that they say like each generation has its own Pluto. It speaks for your whole generation. And that's really interesting that it corresponds that way, because it has to do with the light, the creation, the beginning and the end, right? And that's what light has. It shines on something and then it stops, then it's not there. So that's like this idea of our beloved, and we're so brave when we love. We enjoy it for now because we never know when it could end. We never know when we're going to stop having the love. And feeling at home in our body, in our mind, is to have a heart of wisdom. To be the great mother. We merge, right? We merge into, even if you've broken your word, even if you don't feel worthy of sitting on my lap, you can. And I'm going to talk about now the inner child as, so that's like the internal mother. And I'm going to talk now about the inner child as the polyvagal nerve. And Josh Corda is my favorite person talk neuropsychology with a spiritual twist, or like a consciousness twist. He's a secular Buddhist, and so he calls this like the tantra, right? Is working with the polyvagal. So anyway, spirituality is discovery versus memorizing. It's stepping outside of the limiting framing thoughts. It's a renewed sacredness, importance in daily life, and it's not being trapped by the mundane or the narrative. Like I said earlier, with in that class, we would often in my beloved workshop, we would often see where there was the need in the known and unknown ways. Versus, for me, it was often about being a comforter, and so to comfort the child by saying, what you're showing me is so valuable, versus comforting myself by saying no to the child so I could show myself that I could stop all interruptions. In other words, not being trapped, being open in the moment, unifying drives of natural life to bond. And the justifications are not at the, are very high price. They have a very high price to keep our justifications, because they prevent us from developing and maintaining homeostasis, which means things have to change. If we keep track of things and try to hold on very tight, we don't allow things to change. And I'm not a hypocrite. I work very hard to face my own grief and my shame, literally on a daily basis whenever it's necessary. Sometimes many times in one day. Sometimes I get a good week. Sometimes it feels like a good phase overall. But this is real. This is real work. So we have to, things are always changing. We don't even always get a chance to say, is this even good? It's really hard. It might not be as good as it was before, but we sometimes don't even give ourselves a chance to say we're not happy, to see what we need from God, right? And God in this case being the one that we could sit in the lap of, that we could let ourselves go. And this is like believing in the past boundaries that are of space-time, versus rising in perception above this self-orienting to what I know before, what has been available to me. And it's confidence in being a part of something versus, needing to be all of it, right? So spirituality is knowing that I don't need all the credit, I'm just part of like the amazingness, and it gets credit. Then there's the left brain and the right brain. So the left brain here would be breaking the world into objects. It's very need-based. So this is like the inner child, right? I'm going to be going in with this angle. It represents, interprets, categorizes life environment into labeling, understanding things. It's like language-based. It requires sensory gating. So in other words, it takes a lot of energy to repress sense information. So it would rather individualize and identity-based stories and come up with an autobiography to make it revolve around me so I could keep track of everything. Because it takes so much energy to like repress things that don't matter to me. So everything has to matter to me, right? And unique, different from others versus, being separating and being non-distinction. It just there's this commonality. So having like a self versus the other. So spirituality is being a part of versus like here, left brain is kind of like dividing it or putting it together. Dividing it, putting it together, right? So it's like wanting to be different. It's identity. It's like cutting things up. It has to all make sense. I have to be able to know what it is. It believes thought is the most important, reliable, even though it's a process we host this process. In the mind, it thinks that thought is the most important. It thinks that its thinking is the most important. So another thing to keep in mind is that it might not remember that its focus is very future-oriented. It looks for things external. It's looking for problems to solve. It's attaining resources. It's consuming or acquiring. It thinks that we could rush and then we could finally relax. Versus the right brain now is an automatic, simple, open-ended, embodied. It's somatosensory, so it has sensory information coming in, and it's actually like experiencing it and drawing conclusions from it. And the body is communicating self. It's used to communicate. It's not constructed. It's like versus the left brain, everything's very constructed. In the right side here, it's an ongoing felt sense. It's a flow. It's timeless, unending now. It's the left brain has a self-concept. This is who I am, this is what I do. And the right brain is like the felt sense. So it knows we need to be here now and let go of our imagined future, versus the left brain's always trying to worry about the future. So it's like helping us appreciate the life and vibrancy of what's real and available. So we can tap in and like maybe we become desensitized to our own strength or to what's happening around us. And it's emotional and it's physiological, and it brings into awareness through the spirit, so there's inner chatter, and then between the thoughts, the spirit can navigate it into awareness, right? The room. So there's room opening. So what does this mean? This means that there's a spacious, open, global presence where we can visualize opportunities and check in with them. Nothing's missing, and nothing's lacking. Nothing's incomplete. This left brain is getting its satisfaction of division. There's division. Things are an opportunity. We label things, right? We're learning how to label things and how to divide them up. But we don't have to say there's anything missing. We could divide things up into bigger wholes and say I'm a whole complex human being, instead of I am a person who does the dishes, and in order to get a bigger felt sense experience without denying our inner child its identity. And if we, and the justifications, we get to have a little bit of work being done towards justification. Like I have to prove myself, but the work is proving myself as being open. So for example, I'm an open person takes a lot more work than just being closed and not naming that part. Constantly trying to figure out why I'm closed and what's causing me to be closed. It's very external, right? Versus the inside is what opens and closes. So the materialistic perspective is looking at the outside of what I could touch, what has tangible, versus the right brain is already knowing it is tangible, and it's feeling what it's like to be tangible experience. So this spiritual integration is like the task positive attitude. Yes, there's tasks. The task could be thinking or meditating, right? The task could be gratitude. The task could be listening, but it's focused, engaged, and interested. Versus, in a child, a wandering mind. You say they never grew up, they can never focus, they can't distract, they're so entitled. It's the amygdala is always in threat, in fear, and it's looking to detect something. And that's a child that can't grow up. When we're born at birth, there's a symbiotic connectedness. We have an unlimited power because people will respond to us based on exactly who we are. So this child doesn't have a self or other, it just is part of everything, and there's no inside outside yet. The more that our gratification is delayed, the faster we get ignored, there's a sting of frustration, and there's in the nervous system itself, there's overwhelm. It's too vulnerable. There's a false or inauthentic self at that moment, really, even as a baby, right? Because we start to look at the outside and dualistic. So some people say, no, he was born a narcissist, he'll never change. Or she was born bipolar, she'll never change. We could emotionally heal if we're willing to integrate on the same level, which is the brain itself, the left and the right brain, the same way the medications are supposed to do this. And this is happening in many, 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 many pathways. And I'm going to talk more in the future, I would like to, about various ways to look at these things. And I look forward to spending more time with you. Thank you.